Hello everyone, and welcome back to all the Warships Blitz with Terry. I've actually been away for the last couple of days and just needed a small change of scenery because I've been in the same place for way too long, and before it all goes down again, I figured we'd be out for a little bit. So I'm squeezing in a quick review of the Italian Tech Tree Early Access that's currently open. Now, just to manage expectations here, I am not going to play the tier 6, 7 or 8 Italian cruisers on my press account. Because if you're new, my personal rules for the press account are that I am only playing Tech Tree ships there that I have actually unlocked in my private account. And I haven't had time to play anything on my private account, and I haven't gotten around to the point where I would have any of these ships available. So, except for the tier 3. So we will take a look, but I'm not yet going to actually do a detailed review of these early access ships, just because I don't want to spoil it for myself, because I like I like the excitement of grinding for a ship without necessarily 100% knowing what's coming, and kitting it out and playing around with it. It's part of the fun of the game for me. So that's why I'm not doing it. Because then it's just like, oh yeah, I can just have any ship I want anyway. Why would I even still play? So, with not much further ado, let's get back into it. So what do we have at tier 6? The tier 6 Italian cruiser is the Trento. Light cruiser. No, we have a heavy cruiser here at tier 6. Okay. It's 26,000 hit points, somewhat reasonable amount of armor, not grand, and she is reasonably quick, but the turn time, my goodness, what is that? 11.4 seconds base turn time. Okay, so we definitely need a maneuverability setup for these things. What do we have in the guns? Now, this being Italian cruisers, they have the sub shells, the semi-armor piercing shells. And they don't have HE in return, so you can't set fires on these things. But the sub shells do a very, very decent amount of damage, although they don't have as much penetration as the armor piercing shells. So this ship is fully blueprint upgraded, but nothing else kitted out yet. So just so you have an idea of what you're getting after you've upgraded everything, because it's always a little bit difficult to see. So we've got an 11-second reload, which is kind of average. The range is okay-ish. And the sub damage of 989 is really, really pretty good. Although you have to, we haven't played 200mm sub yet, but you kind of have to expect that anything that's somewhat more heavily armored, you're not going to be doing full penetrations on. So don't expect to do this amount of damage to battleships. The turret traverse of 7.5 degrees per second is dreadful. This is like Soviet cruiser style turret traverse. The Italian cruisers have torpedoes, so you get 2 triple tubes. And if we have a quick look, they are side mounted, but I think only these 2 AA guns here are in the way. Other than that, they should have a relatively reasonable angle. So maybe let me turn that around a little bit. So you can kind of see it here. So I would expect to go like an angle like this maybe on the forward, which isn't bad, which really isn't bad. But you only get 3 torpedoes on each side with a 42-second reload, but a very, very good range of 8.1 kilometers. The anti-air is, well, for a tier 6, probably not completely terrible. But it's nothing to write home about, but it's not bad. And a surface detection of 7.8 kilometers. So this looks like a fun ship. I would expect the semi-armor piercing to do extremely brutal damage against destroyers, because if you can, that's almost 8,000 damage. That means you can probably, if you get all 2 or 3 shots, if you're lucky, 2 shot a full health destroyer in this thing, provided they don't over-penetrate. But given that they have a lower penetration value than the armor piercing, not as low as high explosive, but lower than the actual armor piercing, I would say maybe at mid-range against destroyers, if you kite away from a destroyer and you're very quick, you can drop torpedoes in their way, which just kind of keeps them in line and keeps them distracted. And if you're able to land these 200mm shells and they are full penning against destroyers, they are going to do a monstrous amount of damage. Then again, 11 seconds reload takes a little bit. Against light cruisers probably, and this is again tier 6, so something like the Nuremberg, or like a Leander or something, I would expect these also to full penetrate. Maybe not at maximum range at like 10 kilometers, but most certainly at ranges larger than their torpedo ranges. So it's like 6-7 kilometers sounds like a sweet spot. They can't catch you because you are an extremely quick ship with 35 knots in the base. And again, if you're kiting away, I think other cruisers are going to also to be pretty well to deal with. Battleships, on the other hand, that's where it gets interesting. So I have no experience with the 200mm semi-armor piercing, but with the 150 mils, you're not going to have much fun, not the greatest fun against battleships. Now, I kind of know how, let's say, German armor piercing works against battleships, and you really need to kind of get closer than, well, you need to get close enough that it actually starts penetrating and you can aim at weak spots. The 150 mils had and the Raimondo had problems against bow and stern sections, so I would expect the 200s to fare a little bit better, but that means you gotta get uncomfortably close. So definitely a turn time setup. So let's just try this out. So we're definitely gonna go with steering gear mode 2. Let's see what that gets us in our turn time down. So it gets it down to 9.9 seconds. That's still not good enough for a tier 6 cruiser, even for a heavy cruiser. Just for comparison, so the Giulio Cesare, the tier 5 battleship, has a 9-second turn time. Okay, the Cesare is an extremely maneuverable battleship, but the Warspite has similar turn times. So you're in a heavy cruiser and you basically have the turn time of a Warspite, which means that we cannot really put the acceleration in slot 2, but we might have to go with a double steering setup. Where does that get us? That gets us down to 9 seconds. So again, with double steering setup, you have the same turn time, almost, than an unmodified Giulio Cesare. So these things don't turn. These things go in a straight line, and they do not like to turn around. Take that into account. So you cannot, with these, and also a 16-second time to full speed. Well, that's not quite battleship levels, but like the premium, the Duca d'Aosta, actually has 6.9-second turn time. So this thing, nope, does not like to turn at all. So you have to take that into account. You cannot easily, for example, rush forward, go bow in, and then expect to be able to do a full turn and kite away, because you will be broadsiding for quite a while, and everything that's a battleship is going to unload into you. So you do have to set yourself up, I guess, such that you can always be in a kiting maneuver. Kiting away, especially with the good torpedo angles, kiting away from enemy ships might not be a bad thing to do. Let's have a look at tier 7. What's up in... Oh, wait. One thing, we haven't done the full equipment. So, yes, 7.5 degrees per second. We can put we have elite bonuses. And I think the advanced turret here is probably not a bad choice. Otherwise, she's going to outturn her own turrets. Elite torpedo operator, you could, but it's not a torpedo ship, right? Two triple launches on each side, one on each side. That's not a huge amount of torpedo. I would probably go with the traverse speed elite bonus at this point, which gets us up to, where are we at? 9 degrees. So this is American cruiser standard, which is still not great. So what can we fit in slot 1? I don't have experience with how sturdy the turrets are. On 11 seconds, we could fit the mod 2 in there, which gets us to 10.5-ish, but it's not a huge improvement. We could do that, yes. Or we could put another mod in here like this and get the turret rotation up to 10.8 degrees, which is okay. I think that's probably what I would run on this thing. throw it all into maneuverability and turret rotation, and see that you can, stay at range. You probably really don't want to get too close with these things. So that brings us to the next tier, the Zara at tier 7. What we got here? Zara has almost 30,000 hit points. Somewhat similar armor plating by the looks of it. And again, we can only infer this from the from the values we've got here. When I do the actual reviews, I'm going to take a closer look. She's not quite as quick with 31 knots, and she turns even worse than the Trento. 12 seconds. Okay, now I'm curious. Let's have a quick look actually at the tech tree. 12-second base turn rate. What have we got at tier 7? Let's have a look at the Colorado. What has she got? 12 seconds. We got a bit more than that probably. Yeah, that's 15 seconds. But that's not that far off, honestly. How about a York, for example? Just to get an idea, York has a base turn time of 8 seconds. That's 4 seconds less. How about a Gneisenau? Have I actually set this one up? Gneisenau. I might have set her up. Yes, I have actually set her up. So if we remove the equipment here, then we get to 13.8 seconds. So she has a base turn. Here's the Zara. She has a base turn time which is somewhat comparable to a Gneisenau. So again, an extremely dreadfully going straight. Not actually. She's got worse speed and worse turn time than the tier 6 heavy cruiser. Ugh. Okay. What do we get in return? Well, again, we've get the and I think these are the exact same guns, are they? So again, these two are fully set up. So we've got no, these aren't the same guns. We get a slightly faster reload with 10 seconds, but we get again 4 twin turrets, and they do exactly the same amount of damage, and they have the same base turret rotation. We've got 2 triple torpedo launchers. What's the point on then? So, okay, I might be missing. Am I missing something here? But this ship, to be honest, seems to have a worse turn time, a worse speed, and all she gets in return is a 1 second reload. Maybe it's in the ship skills. Let's have a quick look. So this thing gets the fuel smoke. Fuel smoke, again, being the thing that you take with you. You pop the smoke, you go full speed, and it'll keep working. The Zara at tier 7 gets... Okay, she gets the fuel smoke and the precise aiming. Precise aiming is usually a little hint that you're supposed to play this thing at range. And again, I would thoroughly recommend doing that here. But other than that, I mean, my goodness, this is actually a worse tier 7 than it's a tier 6 almost, in my opinion. Because you are lacking speed here, and that's a whopping. I mean, if we look between that, the Trentos get 34 knots, and this thing's get 31.6 knots. So that's almost 3 knots, or like 2.5 knots less than on the other one. Yikes! So let's put the same kind of equipment in here and see how they compare afterwards. So putting these 2 in plus the turret traverse. And also switching the elite bonus on main battery traverse gets us to a ship that has 9.6 seconds turn time, 31 knots speed, and at tier 6 we have 9 seconds and 34 knots. And again, we get the same turret traverse, but we get a 1 second better reload. Now, it might be that this gun has different characteristics, right? This is an L53, so a 53 caliber length gun. Whereas this is a 50 caliber length gun. So this gun is going to have a better shell velocity, higher muzzle velocity, might be punchier. We don't know that. Yeah, how does it look at tier 8? Because that's about as far as we can go with the Amalfi. Now, the Amalfi out of the box. Okay, here it starts getting a little better. So she finally starts getting some semblance of fire and flooding resistance as well. 32,000 hit points. Again, this is fully upgraded with the blueprints. we get 36 knots, so she's proper quick, and a 10.8 second turn time, which is about the base turn time, I think, of the Warspite at tier 6. It takes her quite a while to get up to full speed, but I don't think you can afford to stick a propulsion mod in this thing. We'll have to try, but it does take her. It sounds more like a ship that you get up to speed and then you don't quite stop, but you just, vary your speed a little bit. Now she gets 9 guns instead of 8 with 3 triple turrets. And are these the same guns as on the Zara? No, they're not. What do we get? We get a slightly increased range, and we definitely get better damage. So we've got over 1,000 in the SAP. Now, we have no idea how well this works against battleships. But this definitely looks like a pretty dangerous setup against other cruisers. Destroyers, if they are not over-penetrating. But even the regular armor piercing against destroyers doesn't start over-penetrating until like 5 or 6 kilometer range, right? So in an American heavy cruiser at this tier, I would be firing armor piercing at destroyers at 6 kilometers and above, because it mostly will do full penetration. So the SAP shells are going to do the same thing, and that means 9,000 damage per salvo if you get them on target. Plus, again, you will get the precise aiming. Well, it's pretty respectable. The torpedoes, we get now quad launchers with a longer reload, but also a longer range, 9.6 kilometers. And again, given that the torpedo arrangement is pretty similar, I'm expecting, again, full arcs, kind of like this here. Excellent torpedo arcs, just like you would have in a French cruiser. The anti-aircraft is... it's not great for tier 8, really. 113 on both. She does have a decent range on the small cal, and she gets the defensive AA skill, but not... I mean, this is tier 8, right? You get into tier 9 games. Definitely not a dedicated AA ship. Doesn't seem to be the strong point of the Italian ships. 8.8 kilometer surface detection isn't completely terrible either. So again, let's see if we can kit her out. So 10.8 second turn time. We could put steering gear 1 in the 3 and see how that goes. That gets us now to 9.3. So for my personal taste, that's still not enough. Let's see what difference in acceleration this makes. So we get 19. What do we get? 19.26 seconds. If we slot the propulsion mod in here, then we get down to 16 seconds. So about 3 seconds less to get up to speed. You're not going to want a dogfight in these things, probably. I mean, you will get into brawls eventually, but I think, again with that turn time on a cruiser, I can't even dodge shells with that turn time. So I'm going to go with that setup. What do we have on the turret traverse here? Is it still 7.5? It's still 7.5. Oh dear. But she gets 2/3 of her firepower forwards, which doesn't help you when you're kiting. But you might be able to, with this setup, with the other two, you only get 50% forwards, because 2 turrets in the rear, 2 turrets in the front. It might be possible to go bow in with this thing and attempt to, just use the forward guns a little bit. That might be viable. I don't know. And in that case, the turret traverse doesn't really make that much of a difference. But I think with an 8.6 second turn time, she's going to outturn her own turrets again. So if we put that, we could do this, the advanced turret. That gets us up to, where are we at? That gets us up to 9 degrees, which is American heavy cruiser standard. So that should be workable. And then we could use the main battery mod 3 in case the guns need an accuracy buff. But that I would actually have to play around with and see and see if that's necessary or not. Other than that, that's probably how I would set these things up. Now, we haven't talked about the Taranto, the tier 3, which is the one that you actually get for free out of the Blitz Pass at the moment. So I do realize this is getting lengthy, but we're looking at the tech tree here, and I'm just voicing my thoughts. This thing, Ilk, and Ilk because she's got a 7.6 second turn time at tier 3. Most light cruisers at tier 3 are turning like destroyers almost. So she doesn't handle very well, not very well at all, and that's already with the steering equipment in. So even at this very low tier, you already have this kind of problem. She gets seven guns in single casemates. They're arranged all over the countryside, but you definitely even on an 8.7 second reload, which is on the long side, you do need the turret traverse modification. You can get the turret traverse speed up because otherwise it's taken. She outturns her turrets again. She gets torpedoes, two twin launches, one on each side, and they do have very narrow spreads, but these only go for 5 kilometers. So this isn't a great tier 3 cruiser. I'd much rather be in something like the Tenryu or even in a German cruiser. But this thing, there are two things you can do in tier 3 or in these low tiers that you can set fires to stuff. Or you can either have things that set fires, or you can have things that have a lot of torpedoes. This thing has 4, and they're side mounted. That isn't a lot. So dealing with battleships in this thing is actually really a problem, because you can't set fires. The SAP doesn't really do anything. The armor piercing itself doesn't really do anything. And you don't really have the torpedo firepower. So, I mean, you can count on the fact that not many people in this tier actually know how to play very well. But she by no means, in my opinion, is a very strong tier 3 cruiser. So this is a ship I would probably just skip ahead from. But let's go out in this thing, because that's probably the first one that most of you are going to get to see. And let's have a battle. So, as most of ships at lower tiers, these things don't have any AA, so you're completely at the mercy of the carrier if you get into a bottom tier game. As we are here, because there's a Langley on the enemy team and an Arkansas, and a bunch of cruisers and destroyers. So destroyers are the things that you are relatively well equipped in dealing with. Because, and again, you don't want to get into brawls with destroyers, because you're not having a ship that turns particularly well. But the semi-armor piercing against destroyers is very, very powerful. So let's see, tier 3. We stick on the semi-armor piercing, and we're just gonna go wide here, because look at how slow these guns turn still, even. So it does take them a while to actually get the rear turrets here turned around into a kind of forward-facing position, and you get about 5 of them pointed at one side at a time, because the other 2 are on the other side of the ship, so you're not gonna get more than 5 guns on target. But I leave it on the semi-armor piercing, and it looks like the Clemson here is coming with us. And we'll see if we can spot a destroyer, but we definitely want to be on the side. We don't want to be brawling anything, and hopefully against other light cruisers like that Duguay-Toulon, that would have worked. But here's the Wix, so that's the primary target, and it starts working. So it looks like he's turning. I'll drop some torpedoes in his wake here, and then she still outturns her turret, even with the traverse modification. But she does you don't also want to try and torpedo destroyers necessarily in this thing. I'm just gonna use the turrets on both sides and just get these shots on target. You do get the occasional bounce, but most of the time you will get full penetrations with the semi-armor piercing. And if you get lucky, then actually hit something. She can do a really reasonable amount of damage against these things. Okay, so we seems to have lost our destroyers. Yeah, there come some torpedoes. And this is again why you don't want to brawl. Now the Wix doesn't have the range to actually torpedo me, and he's probably hiding behind that island here right now. And I'm under air attack and I'm getting shot at by something over there. But you don't want to brawl in these things, because you're not maneuverable enough, really. And there are some very maneuverable ships at this tier. So there's another Taranto. Let's start opening up at that thing. I have managed to score citadels with the semi-armor piercing against other cruisers. That is definitely a possibility. And you see, again, you see how difficult it is to turn that ship around. I mean, I still probably would have dodged that, but it's a bit of an issue. So there's the other Taranto. Let's just keep shooting at that thing. And we are doing... At this range, we're not going to citadel anything. You got to get a lot closer. You can still dodge. I mean, most of the people don't know that they can turn the ship left and right at this tier. So I'm going to drop some torpedoes in his way. He's not actually in range, but he's sailing towards me. That's one thing that you can do when you're kiting away from ships, is to drop torpedoes into their path. I might have to lead a little bit more. So I was underestimating how quick these things are. That's one thing she's got going for herself. She is very, very quick. You can still dodge some shells and just, keep the fire up. Okay, there's a destroyer in our cap. I'm going to have to deal with that in a second. In the meantime, I'm just going to sink some more salvos into that thing. Okay, there's the Wix. Wix is over there. There's another Wix, which is probably going after, I don't know what, just a cap. But yeah, you don't want to be here, and now you're dead. Okay. The other Taranto is still there. The other Wix is still alive, but he's at the maximum range, so I'm just going to shoot at that thing here. And he seems to have given up chasing after me. Maybe I scared him a bit with my torpedoes. So you can. Oh yeah, he found a destroyer to kill. That's what these things are good at. You can kite away in these cruisers. Okay, got it. With some help, I think, from the Wyoming over there. You can kite away. You can drop the torpedoes into other ships that are chasing after you because of the excellent angles. And but yeah, now there's a battleship. I'm on half health and turning around. I'm spotted because of the plane. So let's see where he's shooting at. Who is he shooting at? Is he shooting at me? It looks like he's got his turrets turned. No, he's turning, and I'm committed to the turn. Yeah, the semi-armor piercing does absolutely nothing, and I got very lucky here not to get deleted. Was able to just dodge under these, or away from these shells. I got a couple semi-pens. The armor piercing would be rather similar at this range. You really don't have weapons against battleships in these ships here. At least with the 150 mils, that's just really... You could get close and try and torpedo them, but only do that if they're otherwise occupied. Do not try to rush a battleship, because you don't have the torpedo power to do anything. And yeah, the carrier can just drop me with impunity. So how are we looking from points? Okay, I don't want to get killed, just in case the Wyoming can't take out that Arkansas. Oh, he should be able to. He's in full health. I don't want to get killed here, so I'm just going to slow down just to the point where I can shoot over that. I can shoot over the ledge there. I'm going to try the armor piercing for a little bit and see if I can actually still make a dent with that. There's some more planes coming, but the tier 4 planes are not going to be able to actually hit anything. Okay, he's dead before my armor piercing gets there. So that's the battle pretty much over. But yeah, 20,000 points. I've done battles with 40,000 points of damage, but that's mostly because people just don't. People just don't pay attention, sitting in a battleship, or keep being focused in, waiting for the guns to reload, and you can just drive to this side, drop some torpedoes, turn around, drop the other side of torpedoes, and very, very slowly whittle their health down. But these cruisers are not very well... You cannot easily carry a game in these cruisers, because they just don't have the firepower. Destroyers and stuff, they will deal with very, very effectively. But everything else... Other cruisers, yes, but battleships is a bit of a nightmare in these things. So, yeah, am I excited about this line? Well, I'm kind of curious about the tier 6, the 200 mils. The tier 7 looks pretty dreadful so far, and the tier 8 I'm not quite certain about yet, but might get interesting as well. The fuel smokes are probably what will help you with the lack in maneuverability, that you can actually turn without being spotted and without being shot at. The fuel bug, the smoke bug is hopefully going to be fixed in the next patch. So that would be an interesting mechanic, just to use that to reposition. Other than that, they very much look like hiters to me. And without having HE to burn things down, this might get a little tedious. But we'll have to see how that goes. Not on my personal priority list, even though I do like cruisers. But I like to brawl. And these things are definitely not looking like brawlers. But maybe I'll be proven wrong. We'll find out. Anyway, I think that's been going on for long enough. So that's it for today. I see you next time. Bye-bye.